turn off your camera. Balik na po natog on na later. Okay. So I'll also turn off my camera para dili kayo bugat. So last time I have asked you to research on the evolution of computer. Okay, so based on your research, guys, unsa man or how did the computer evolve? What was the first ever considered earliest computer made by man? Hello. Okay, so pwede mo mutubag. You can turn on your microphone. Okay, so unsa man to ato ang gi-consider as the earliest computer ever developed by mankind?
Itong Z1, sir.
Huh? Z Z1?
I think, sir, it's the abacus.
It's the abacus. Okay.
Hands, sir?
The hands. Okay. So
Z3, sir.
Z3, unsa man ang Z3 kanang sa Sony man ang Z3 ba nga model? Android bago naman na. Okay. So the hands I don't think that man developed their hands. Okay. So unsa may pinakasunod-sunod sa inyohang na research nito? Abacus. Okay. So kasagaran sa inyuhang gibutang is unsa man? I think murag majority man siguro is the abacus. Okay? Nga na nagpang submit. Okay? So if it's the abacus, unsa may timeline niya and where did it originated? Okay? So even though dili siya kanang powered by Intel or AMD, okay, or na siya IPS or AMOLED na screen, it is still considered as a computer. Okay? And bisan pag wala siya battery, computer gyapon siya. Okay? Okay, because it helps people in computing. Okay? So the number one na is the abacus. But kinsa may mga nag-answer og abacus diri. Wa na ko kasubay sa inyong answer. Okay? So for those who answered abacus, okay? Kanus man ni siya unang na develop base sa ato ang or base sa research sa ato ang mga scientists. Okay, where did this abacus originated? Okay. Guys, anyone? Someone? No one? What, yun? Bisag ko sa?
China, sir.
China. Okay, so one says it's from China. Okay, kinsa pay nailaing na research.
Roman Empire and ancient Romance, sir.
So, naapoy uban, ancient Roman. Okay, so kung ato ang tanawon ang iyahang kuan guys, ang iyahang timeline. Okay, kanus aman siya na discover kung anhi sa China. Okay, when did it started kung anhi sa China? O kung sa Romans, when man sad. Okay, para mo-compare na to, kinsa man dyan nag-una ning duha. Okay? Anyone? So, naa sa mga around 2nd century BC. Unsab na siya sa Roman or sa China? Okay? So, sa China. Okay? So, di ba naman sa ito'y article nga ang Romans may nagda sa China, sa abacus? Okay? So, actually, there was also even research wherein the abacus could have existed
Sumerian.
earlier pa. Ano sa to? Sumerian. Okay?
Sumerian civilization, sir.
As early as that. Okay? During the Babylonian time. Sa na siya mga 300 BCE ba na siya? BC. Okay? So, during that time, so wala jay concrete evidence pa as to kinsa jay nag-una. Okay? Kay usually when we talk about abacus, ang una maguna tong mahuna-hunaan is ang mga Chinese. Kay mauman jay pirmi natong mahibaw-an nga mogamit og abacus even up till today. Kusog kay na sila mag tuplok-tuplok anang abacus. Kasi kabaw mo gamit og abacus dire. Nabay kabaw mo gamit og abacus? Wa na ganahan mo gamit abacus no kay nanay Android phone, dali na lang kaayo ang calculator sa Android phone. Okay? Yeah, mas gamay pa compared sa abacus. Okay? So anyway, let's first talk about computers, okay? In general. So unsa man ni computer? So when we talk about computer, okay, we refer to it as a fast computing device. So of course, compared sa una, katong mga abacus, di man to siya fast. Okay? But still, it helps in the computing. Okay? So today's computing refers to computer-supported commercial and scientific applications. So powered by application. Dili pareha sa abacus. Unsab ng abacus? Pawis powered. Okay? Manual man siya. Okay? So example of computing are the so-called web services, control systems. So even kanang naa sa mga missiles, okay? Sa mga sakyanan, household devices. So halos bisag asa makita na nimo ang computer. Okay? So as said before, okay, the computer can be comparable to a human brain but not as smart. But karong mga panahon na, can you still say that the computer is dumb? Okay, murag di na no. Kay machines nowadays are becoming more and more intelligent because of the advanced AI technology developed by man. Okay? Naghinay-hinay na siya katon mo nang usahay hadlok kayo ang ubang tao nga what if maka-create og consciousness ang mga machine and they see people as, let's say, something nga murag makadaot sa environment. Okay? So mapariha niya taog katong Terminator nga movie. Okay? Nga di pang patay na ang mga tao. Okay, mo may makaguba sa kalibutan and considered as a pest. Okay? So anyway, sci-fi. Okay? So again stating that a computer is an electronic device that performs arithmetic and logic operation at a very high speed. We also refer to computers as data processor that can store, process, and retrieve data as when we desire it to be. Okay, so very simple ang operation sa computer. You input some data, it processes the data and manipulate the data to create an output. Okay, so typically there are those words there again, data and information. Okay, unsa may kalahian aning data and information di ay. Okay? So when you talk about data manggod, okay? Think of it as unrefined information. Okay? So if you have data, basically it doesn't make sense having a lot of data. It is only when these data are arranged in a logical manner producing relevant information that it becomes a so-called information. Okay? So kung dili nimo ma-process ang data to generate sensible um, information, okay, di na nato matawag na information jud. Okay? So dapat ma-verify sa siya. Okay? Now, going into the evolution of computer, okay? I mean the modern computer. So we do know that the abacus serves as the so-called earliest computer created by man. But of course, dili siya ang kanang gitawag nato nga modern computer based on our definition. So, if we look at the evolution how computers came into being, it could go back as early as the 1600s. Okay? So, it was Blaise Pascal who invented the first mechanical adding machine. Okay? So, purely mechanical. Wala pa mauso ning panahon na ang computer engineers, ang electronic engineers. Okay? So during that time, after pila ka years, okay, so another inventor made a calculator that could perform multiplication, and that was made by Baron Gottfried. So after that, okay, as time goes on, keyboard machines were designed in the US. Okay, so in a way, mura na sa siyang typewriter. And again, during that same year, Herman Holloway invented the so-called punch cards, okay, to input media, which is actually even still used today. Okay, so nagya po yung mga company kanabang to monitor log-in, log-out. Okay, wala pa man sila biometrics, kay medyo mahal man ang system. They have the so-called punch cards. Okay, so even diri sa bus, di ba? Nay ubang bus nga electronic na ang ilahang pag-generate og receipt. But still, katong medyo wala pa'y budget kung sa may gamit nila guys. Okay? Di ba? Buslot-buslot sa papel. Okay? So, ingana ang storage media sa una when storing information. Okay? They make a use of paper. They put a hole on the paper, and that hole in the paper would actually contain the information representing naka-on ba or naka-off. Okay? So, even the modern computers are still using that concept nga storing information using on off and on signal. But of course, dili nga na kadako ang on and off. Okay? So later atuwa niya ng storyaan. Okay? So in the second evolution of the modern computer came Charles Babbage, okay? Which is said to be the father of the modern digital computers, okay? So katong mga na-design sa unang nga mga computers are very crude, okay? However, kaning di-design ni Charles Babbage, okay, becomes the basis of the modern computer, okay? So as what we can see based on the timeline, on the 1800s, he developed the difference engine. Okay? So sa una adding rag multiplication, dire na anay difference. Okay? So anhin na to niya makita later guys, okay? How the computers was able to perform subtraction without using the minus sign. Okay? So computers actually subtract numbers by adding. Okay? Labad sa uno. Nganong mag-add man kung mag-subtract. Okay? So the computer has actually a technique for that. Okay? So aside from that, okay, so he was also able to design a fully automatic analytical engine. Okay? So as you can see there, the word automatic, okay, that can perform basic arithmetic operation. Kay ngano dito sa una, sir? Okay, katong time ang good sa mga mechanical computers, pawis powered to siya. Magsigi kag tuyok, okay, sa machine. Okay? Manual nimong iparan ang machine using hand power. Okay? So mo tong mga earliest computer. So moving forward, okay, to the 1900s, okay. So as you can see, Mark 1 was the first ever electromechanical calculating device with a size of around 50 feet by 8 feet. So imagine kung hatagan ka sa imuhang ginikanan og computer pero Mark 1 mudawat pa ka, murag by looking at the size di na lang oy kay nga naman wa man gyapon gamit di ko kaduwag dota na kay nga naman imagine kung mag-perform og multiplication it will took it around 4.5 seconds and addition will take 0.3 seconds. Okay? Wa jud kay mabuhat ana. Okay? So next you can see there again as time progresses, okay? The Atana software computer was developed, okay? So it is an electronic machine designed to solve mathematical functions. So unsa may kalahian sa previous one? Ang previous one is electromechanical, okay? So probably it's created using relays. Okay, are you familiar with relays, guys? Hello, feel free to answer. Okay, naka-encounter na mo ng relays? Where did you first hear that word, relays? Hello? What, Jude? Relays. Okay? Or how about kinsa may nakasuway o create og electromagnet? Okay? During their senior high or I think murag high school na na siya. Part sa mga experiment during the physics days.
Switches na, sir?
In a way, mura siyang switch. But instead
Itong
of,
battery o kuan sir, copper wire.
yes, kana, battery and copper wire. Okay? So, inside a relay, guys, it is actually made up of kanang gitawag na tong electromagnet. And, wait, where is my, wait lang ha, let me, working area. Where is my working area? Okay. So, ang electromagnet basically is composed of, let's say, kanang gitawag natong iron core. Okay? So, katong gibuhat ninyo unsa may gigamit ninyo for the iron core. So, probably langsang no. Yeah, langsang gi bubura nato og magnetic wire. Baga kayo. Okay? Then gisupplyan din na nimo dira og power. So, probably gikan sa battery source. Okay? So, this wire generates a magnetic field. With all those magnetic field closely packed together, it generates a stronger magnetic field. Okay? So, that is how you create an electromagnet. Okay? So, unlike the permanent magnet, which is always naka-energize, okay, always generating a magnetic field, ang electromagnet, pwede nimo makontrol ang magnetic field using the battery source. So what will happen if it is turned on? So it acts like a magnet. So kung naay metal dool niya, okay, mopilit siya dira. And this is what they used before to perform the switch on and switch off operation without touching the actual device. Okay? So katong sulod sa inyong kauban ganina, is it like a switch? Yes. So natin gitawag na schematic symbol that looks like this. Okay? So this is the coil part. Okay? And it has this so-called switches or better yet, ang gitawag nila ani is contacts. Okay? So this is just a representation of what a contacts logically looks like. Okay? So looks something like this. Okay? So kaning taas nga line dire, imagine that murag mao na siya ang part sa metal nga i-attract sa coil nimo. So let's say if this coil is energized, this metal tends to move in that direction. So unsay mahitabo? Kung switch ni siya, ang close switch mo open, ang open switch mo close. Okay? So machines like this before contains a lot of relays to perform that on and off operation. Okay? So, naapod tayo kaning gitawag nga electronic machine. Okay? Nga gi-generate or gihimo ni Atanasoff. Okay? So, kanang electromechanical device nga gipanggamit was later on improved to make use of vacuum tubes. Okay? So, vacuum tube are basically, guys, murag the ancestor of that semiconductor device that we call now today as transistors. Okay? Pero again, dagko kay tong vacuum tubes as compared to the transistors that we have now. Okay, so naapod ni siya, ENIAC, 1940s. Okay? And almost on the same year, naapoy na himo si EDVAC. And you also have there the UNIVAC, which was considered as the first ever digital computer. Okay? So, kung magtanaw ka, any of these computers siguro did you ka ganahan maka own. Especially kanang si Mark 1 kay tanawa ang size 50 feet by 8 feet. Okay? So naa si ENIAC 20 feet by 40 feet. Perting dako Okay? So kung mangutan ko pilay size sa inyong room. Murag di jud ni siya masud ning komputera. Okay? So mga computers before di masud sa ato ang packet. But ikaw, pwede ra jud kay kaisud sa computer. Okay? So that was the computers before. Okay? Now, looking at how the modern computers evolved, okay, tanaw na to ang timeline. Okay? So katong gi-consider nila as the first and second generation. Okay? So first generation, the ENIAC, EDVAC, UNIVAC, okay, those were simply created using electromagnets, okay, kanang gitawag nato mga relay, vacuum tubes, and punch cards. Okay, so imagine punch card, mao na pinaka diskette nila sa una, mao na pinaka flash drive nila sa una. Okay? So second generation, as what we can see there, naana si Honeywell, IBM, CDC, and the evolution of UNIVAC. Okay? So mas nisaka-saka na. Third generation, as what you can see there, again, buhi gihapon no? Are you familiar with IBM? Guys, are you
System
familiar with
unit, sir.
IBM? Okay. So we know IBM as creators of computers. However, medyo when you look at the market nowadays, dili day nimo makita ano unsa naman yung bagong computers nga ilang gi-create. Okay? So mga computer industry karon dominated na lang ni Samsung, Apple, Asus, Acer, okay? HP, puro made in China. So, kay kaning mga names murag wa na jud ni siya madungog. Okay, so as you can see on the third gen, okay, they are now using ICs. Okay? So as what we can see there guys, okay, nagamit sila SSI and MSI technology. Okay? Unsa may pasabot-an ng SSI ug MSI, and what does IC stands for again? Okay, so the meaning integrated circuit. So what will SSI and MSI mean? Okay,
Small,
so
small scale and mass scale integration.
unsa to? Mo?
Small scale.
Mid
Okay. So wala siya. SSI, small scale integration, o MSI, that is medium scale integration. So usually, kaning mga IC is composed of around 10 to 100 transistors inside. Okay? So kana SSI, mga kana 10 transistors. Talking about MSI, na siya sa mga 50, okay, to 100 transistors. Okay? So in a way, medyo ni gamay-gamay na ang mga computers. Okay? However, kaning mga type of computers, okay, are still not that, let's say, friendly o competitive ang price nga pwede magamit sa normal nga tao. Okay? So, what do you mean by normal nga tao? That means kana bang dili jud adunahan pag-ayo ba? Okay? So, only mga industries, big companies is capable of buying such a device. Okay? However, compared sa previous, mas barato siya. Okay? So, moving forward, okay? So, abot sa 4th gen, makita nato another evolution, ang IC nahimo ng VLSI. Okay? So, obviously, VLSI stands for kung nay medium. Okay, so that is very large scale integration. Okay? So, mas daghan na og transistor per chip. Okay? Thereby reducing the size farther. Okay? So during this time, na create or na coin ang term nga microprocessor. Okay? So as what we can see there, okay, it is now using semiconductor memory. Okay? So ang iyahang capacity for storage device nagkadako-dako na kay naanay mga hard drive, naanay mga floppy disk. Okay? And during this time, naana tay mga gitawag nga personal computers. Okay? So ordinary people can now make use of computers. And during this time, nagsugod na og develop ang high-speed computer networks or what we refer to now as the internet. Okay? So, mo ni mga panahon na nga nagkapaspas ang development sa software. Kay nga naman, mas daghan namang tao ang makadevelop og application. Unlike before, since mahal man kay ang computer, ang ubang tao that didn't have a chance to create a software for that machine. Okay? So, as you can see, again, buhi gyapon si IBM, okay? And katong mga players like PDP and CDC nangawagtang na. Okay? So, on the next generation, okay, ang IC na to mas naka-jump pack pa jud. Okay? So ang IC is now in ULSI. Okay? So gikan sa very, okay, nahimo ng ultra large scale integration. Okay? Hello, napa mo guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, napa sir.
Naapa di ay abikog na wagtang na. Okay, so kaning nga part medyo boring pa jud kay ni siya kay bla bla pa kay history man gud. Okay? So anyway, during this time, okay, nagkagamay na pag-ayo ang mga computers na anay mga notebooks na develop. Okay? So of course, kaning nga mga notebooks doesn't even come close to the notebooks that you are using right now. Okay? It doesn't even come close to the cell phones that you are using right now. So anyway, that's technology. Okay? As time progresses, ang ato ang mga computers nagkagamay. Okay? And becoming more and more powerful. Okay? So, aside from that, a lot of software technologies was already developed. Okay? So, naanay mga variations sa operating systems, programming languages like Java, C, C Sharp, Python, and many, many more. Okay? So, karong panahon na guys, when talking about computers, okay? Unsa may pinaka bet ninyong computer karong panahon na?
Nasa computer, sir.
NASA computer. Okay? NASA jud no? Okay? Dapat gihimong NASA ang computer for commercial use?
Ang
Murag
computer, sir, ba kay
murag-
high-tech kay
murag-
ilang computer, sir.
Murag gabasir manggihapon na sila sa commercial available computers nga naa sa market. Okay?
Computers ang gamit, sir.
So, what akabaw in the next generation kaning mga computers nga gigamit nato nga ang idea in a way murag gibasi pa kang Charles Babbage could be replaced. Okay? So, I think you have heard of the so-called quantum computing, no? Okay? So, it is said to revolutionize the computing industry. But as of now, dili pa nila mahimo nga himuon siyang commercial. Okay, nga naman, it's still in the R&D stage. Okay? To have one, it's like comparable sa mga computers sa una nga dagko kayo. Okay, one of the main problem nila as of the moment is I think ang miniaturization sa setup. Okay? Kay it really needs a lot of cooling. So if you want to own one, dapat sa balay nimo na kay dakong space dira para sa tangke-tangke of nitrogen. Okay? So anyway, let's just wait. Okay, nabi ati ko sa
Hello.
company
Hello.
is trying to create
Hello.
quantum computer that will be made available daw for the masses. Okay? So hopefully sa to ang generation makaabot pataan na. Okay? So what kabaw paspas biya kayo ang evolution sa computer. Okay? So it was just let's say mga 10 years ago. Okay? Mga or more than 10 years na gani, okay, that we were still using mga dot matrix nga phone. Okay, nakaabot pa man ka og dot matrix kaha. Okay, kaila pa mo mga Nokia 3210. Okay, so who would have thought nga ang mga computers karon mapariha nag Star Trek. Okay, nga if you watch that Star Trek movie guys, okay, probably it is one of the basis for the design of the tablet. Okay, so kanang Star Trek na series 70s pa na siya and they were already using tablets. Okay, so kanang communication, okay, video call na sila, okay, during those early times, and nowadays it's like a normal fad. Okay, sa una kung pa kay mga tao, wow giunsam na nila, pero karon ay common naman na siya. Okay, away klase atubang raganig monitor, wala sa atubangan ang teacher. Okay, so anyway mo na ang evolution sa technology guys. Okay, so moving forward, okay, unsa may gamit jud ani ato ang mga computers. So we know that basic operations sa computers involves inputting the data, storing the data on the device, and the device will process the data and generates an output. Okay, which again can be used to control probably the operation of the computer or other external device like your monitor, speaker, printers, and other stuff nga pwede i-control sa inyong computer. Okay? So, very basic ra ang operation. Okay? Napabumay mo hunahunaan unsa pa operation sa computer? I think maura man jud siguro na no? Input, store, process, output, and control. Okay? Napabaylain? Something that I've missed?
Wala na, sir.
Wala na. Okay? Maura. So, if we look at the organization of a modern computer, okay, maura ni ang ato ang block diagram. Okay? So, you have here the input side, okay, which is consists of your programs and data, okay, and this is your storage, okay, which is composed of the primary storage and the secondary storage, okay, and the output information, okay, generated by your processing unit, okay, or the so-called CPU. So kung magtanaw ta inside the CPU, mao na in charge to do the processing, be it logic or arithmetic, okay? And it is also used for controlling, okay? So arithmetic logic unit, also known as the ALU, okay? So naputay control unit, okay? So wala ra kayo madungog ang control unit kay usually ang control unit is also bundled with the ALU, okay? So CPU, that is the central processing unit. But in our computers, aside from the CPU, what other U do you have? Okay, katong mga gamers, di ba?
GPU, sir.
The GPU. And why do we use the GPU, guys? Nga naaman tayo CPU. Okay, for displaying graphics. Okay, so yes, but can the computer still display graphics without the GPU?
Yes.
Okay, so pwede ra no kay ngano man it could be controlled by the CPU man gihapon. Okay, so mo na gitawag nila nga integrated. However, okay, with the help of the GPU, if your computer is processing a lot of, let's say, graphics or pang video output, a GPU could really help minimize the work of the CPU. Okay? So mo nang naatay mga GPU, mo nang ang mga gamer as much as possible, dapat na-adjust GPU ang system. Kay labinag ang mga applications today are so demanding. Okay, a lot of GPU processing is involved. Okay? So muna kung palit kag mga GPU ro no for gaming, perti pong mahala. Mukumpara pod sa price sa mga CPU. Okay? And there even came a point nga murag na ay shortage sa GPUs. But karon nag-normalize na ba ang supply sa GPUs? Okay? It's a wala gyapon. So nagnihit gyapon. Okay? So hinay ang production. I guess it's probably because of the COVID-19 effect. Because of COVID-19, a lot of companies nag-reduce og workforce kay of course to avoid contamination. So mapod ng gamay ang supply sa mga electronics kay grabe biya ni sa China. Okay? So anyway, let's proceed. Okay? Let's dig in further. So nakita nato dire na ay input unit, output unit, secondary, primary storage, control unit and the arithmetic logic unit. Let's get to know more about the so-called primary and secondary storage. Okay? Now, when we talk about the primary storage or also known as the main memory, okay? Unsa may main difference ani niya sa secondary storage? Okay, in layman's term, okay? You can also see there the concept of what the primary storage is and the secondary storage are. Okay? So sa inyuhang term guys, how would you describe the primary storage and the secondary storage? Okay. So ang secondary for long term, ang primary for short term. Okay? So as what we can see, a major description of what a primary storage is kwansya, volatile. Okay? So when you say volatile, mo na siya temporary. Kung sa electronics pa, kung volatile ang memory, that means if you remove the electrical power, mawagtang ang data. Okay? Whereas when you talk about secondary storage, non-volatile ang data. That means your data stored on that storage could last for a very long time. Okay? So when you are using your cell phones, okay, naman tayo gitawag nga RAM o ROM. Okay? So based lang on the definition, okay, the primary storage usually is smaller compared sa secondary storage. Okay? So though the example there indicates that the ROM is in the primary storage, however, when we talk about ROM sa ato ang mga cellphone, we consider the ROM as the secondary storage because that is where you store your program and other data. Diba? Kung mag-install kag application, ana man na sa ROM i-install, di man na sa RAM. Okay? But how come kung magduwa ka games or mag-save kag mga files, ingnon man nila nga or kana mag-open kag application, nganong ingnon man nila mas nindot og dako og RAM? Okay? What is the purpose of the RAM? Okay? And how can we differentiate that RAM from the ROM? Okay? So basically guys, when you install an application on your computer, be it on the desktop, laptop, or your cell phone, okay, you store that on the secondary storage. Every time you run your application, that program is loaded into the main memory. Okay? Because in the main memory, that is where the code or kanang gitawag nato nga instructions are placed for immediate result. Kay ang primary storage or ang main memory, mauna siya mo directly communicate with the processor, telling the processor what needs to be done. Okay, again, The primary memory will be the one to give instruction to your processor or to the CPU. Okay? So mo nang, let's say if you feel nga inyuhang phone is lagging or your PC nag-start og lag kay there are too many applications naka-open, like let's say right now you are opening your browser nya naabot og mga 100 ka book tabs and you start to feel nga uy kahinay na gud ani ako ang computer. So what do you do? Kung muhinay, what do you do guys kung muhinay?
I-close ang tab.
Close ang
Close
tab.
ang tabs.
Okay, so i-close mga around 75% of the tab nga na-open, di ba? Or magkalisod gani kung di na mo respond, what do you do?
Restart.
Restart.
Start.
Grabe, restart daw yun. Control Alt Delete sa oy. And
Restart.
Task manager.
Task manager niya.
okay, palaban sa task manager, ang uban diretso di pislit sa power button. Okay? So dili pa jud reset, power off pa jud. Okay? So patay guba computer. But again, the modern computers nowadays are medyo kana kayo, dili na ingana ka tawag anay, dili na ingana kadali maguba unlike before. Sa unang panahon man gud, when you press the power button, as the name implies power button, it directly removes the power from your computer, shutting down your computer. Pero ang mga computer mong karon, if you press the power button, it performs reset. Okay? Or rather, before siya mapaong, it performs a reset of the system before it powers down. Okay? So sa mga computers sa una, kung nakatagiya pa mo mga computer sa una, kato mga Pentium 4, Pentium 3, if you press the power button, again, it totally shuts down the entire computer system. Nya na pa jud laing button which is for reset. Nganong lahi pa man ang reset ug ang power button? Because ang reset man gud guys, ang gibuhat anang reset is just i-reset niya tanang applications that was loaded in the memory. Okay? And it doesn't remove the power of the entire system. So, kung maghang ang computer, nganong mas nindot man ang reset kaysa i-power down off, maura maghihapon mo off raman ang ako ang application nga gi-open. The thing is, when you power down the entire computer system, di ba, it removes the power from the computer. Now, if you are still using hard drives, if you directly remove the power from your hard drive na nag-spin, it could actually destroy your hard drive. Okay? Mao nang reset button may gamiton. Okay? Kay sa reset button, if you press the reset button, it will only perform a reset on the CPU. Okay? And the power on your computer still is available. So dili makalitan ang hard drive. Okay? Nga tangtangag power largo. Okay? So makaamdam pa si computer to properly shut down. Nga pahinayon ang tuyok sa hard drive. Okay? So mao na siya guys. Ang epekto sa reset button o power button. But again, sa mga computers nowadays, they are becoming more intelligent. When you press the power button, automatic din na siya mo issue og reset command sa system before actually powering down. Okay, of course, to save your hard drives from being damaged. Okay, so mo na guys, ang difference between the storage, okay, the primary and the secondary storage. Okay, so mo nang kumupalit mo mga cellphone, makakita gani mo nga mas mahal or mas dako gani ang RAM kaysa ROM. Obviously, that's a scam. Okay? Kay ang primary storage, mas mahal na siya kaysa sa ROM. Mao nang wa kay makit-an dira nga computer nga mas dako ang RAM kaysa sa ROM. Okay? Kay ngano man, murag it sounds impractical. Okay? Why would you have a RAM nga mas dako kaysa sa ROM kung ang content sa imong ROM i-load sa program padung sa RAM, dili ra ma-fill ang RAM. So dako kay kag wastage sa imong space nga di magamit. Okay? So laliman ka sa ROM, let's say puro application, though di mo jud na puro application na kay 4 gig nga ROM nya ang imong RAM 8 gig. Unsaon man nimo ang 4 gig nga extra sa RAM di magamit, di ba? So mao na kasagarang mga design mas gamay ang RAM kaysa sa ROM. Kay sa ROM man gud ang application nimo dili man tanan ma-load sa memory kay di man all together gamiton nimo ang application. Okay? So and also that's used to reduce the cost of the computers. Okay? So anyway, padayon ta. Okay, this is the memory hierarchy. So as what we can see there, okay, naatay gitawag nato nga hierarchy sa memory gikan sa topmost padong sa ubos. So essentially, going to the highest level would give us a faster memory access, while as you go lower, it becomes slower. However, magka-slow man gani ang iyang access, ang capacity kasagaran sa mga memory na adira nga level dagko and mas barato. However, if you go up to the hierarchy, kasagarang capacity ana niya magkagamay. Pero mas faster ang iyang speed. And unfortunately, mas higher pod ang iyang cost per bit. Okay? So, when you are talking about CPUs or the central processing unit, okay? Have you heard about that so-called cache memory nga specs, guys? Okay? Katong naay mga desktop diri.
Yes, sir.
Okay? So, naay cache memory, di ba? Now, if you look at the cache memory, tagpila ang size ana niya.
Nara sa mga MB, sir.
Di ba? Naara sa mga MB. Pirtirang gamaya. Unsaon mo ko ng MB nga memory? Okay? So, again, that's simply to aid the transfer of data from the RAM, the main memory, to the processor. So, instead nga ang information ibalik dito sa RAM, some information that are commonly used, anha ra ibutang sa cache memory para anha ra mo kuha si CPU, thereby mas paspas ang ihang pag-process of data kay di na mo agto gawas sa RAM. So kanang cache memory, guys, naara na siya sa sud sa CPU. So again, ang purpose ana niya is para paspas ang communication sa data. Kay di naman mo gawas diri sa main memory. Okay? So as what we can see here, guys, down below sa main memory naadira ato ang secondary storage such as the hard drive. Okay? So even the hard drives nowadays are getting replaced by unsa nga technology gigamit?
SSD.
SSD. Okay? So mga solid state drive because they are 100 times more faster compared sa HDD or the hard disk drive. Okay? So mga SSD karon nagkabarato-barato na. Okay? Almost comparable na sa price sa hard drive. So if you have the if you have the budget, okay, to replace the older hard drives sa imuhang mga computer, okay, it is recommended that you do so. Okay? Like for instance, I have this computer which is mga 7 to 8 years old. Okay, mga third gen pa to siya sa i-series. So when I was able to replace the hard drive from HDD to SSD, I could see a notable difference in its operation. Okay? So ang iyang function comparable na gud sa i7 sa specs niya sa una. Okay? So ingana siya ka drastic ang iyahang improvement sa performance with SSD. So of course, comparing the price of the SSD compared sa HDD, matawag natong mas mahal si SSD comparing it to the per peso per bit nga comparison. But again, okay, dili jud nimo malimod ang improvement sa performance that you would rather have an SSD as compared sa HDD. Okay? So mo na ang uban buhaton is dual storage. Okay? Ang usa where the OS and the other applications are located is gibutang sa SSD. While katong mga files like mga movies or kanang i-store lang is gibutang sa hard drive. Okay? So usually nga naman natong buhaton no magsige tag save og files sa ato ang computer. Okay? So kung ang imong purpose lang na is for storage lang, okay? Si tawag ana niya for saving the files for nga dili kayo permi gamiton, nindot ra na ibutang dito sa hard disk drive, okay, for repository purposes. Okay, sayang kayo ang SSD, dili ma-maximize ang performance. Okay, so as what you can see there, as we go lower, okay, na ay mga secondary storage device such as the magnetic tape, floppy disk. Ambot nakasuway ba mo zip disk, guys? Okay, kaning zip disk is like an improvement to the floppy disk. Okay? So katong floppy disk which is magnetic. So ang katong magnetic nga floppy disk manggod sa una katong sa to siya 1.4. Okay, katubang murag slide nimo, it's only 1.4 MB ang iyang capacity. Kaning mga zip disk, it's around 10 MB ang capacity. But the problem is you would need a specialized hardware to read those information. Okay? Pero wa jud kay to siya magdugay. So after the floppy drives, di ba, nanggawas dayon ang mga CDs, DVDs na himong writable nga sikat kaayo mapalit dito sa CDR King. But again, that technology didn't last long. Okay? Kinsa pa may tigamit og CD diri og DVD naa pa ba? Murag wala na no. Sa una kusog kay mamalit og CD diri sa Kulon. Okay? Mopalit pa gani atong portable CD og DVD player. Okay? Pero karong panahon na wala na. Kani nga mga technology was considered obsolete. Okay? Og di na practical gamiton kay bulky kaayo. Karon ang mga tao, if they want to hear music, they just take out their phone kay tanan naa na didto. Okay? And wala na extra devices nga i-plug in para makatanaw kag movie or maka-hear ka og music. Okay? So, mass storage device, okay, CDs, okay, nagkabarato, flash drives, nagkabarato na. Okay? Kung mupalit ka karon og 128 GB na flash drive, tagpila na lang. It's around mga 500 to 600 pesos na lang. Unlike sa una, mupalit kag flash drive, 4 gig, tiglibo ka pin. Okay? So again, that's how technology progresses. Okay? So nagkadako ang storage, nagkaubos ang price. Okay? So kani po diri sa technology, again, memory hierarchy, these are how we do price comparison, speed, and the cost. Okay? So let's move on forward. Okay? So that is of course base sa hardware nga storage part sa imong system unit. So kani ang usa sa mga pinaka-importante nga part sa ato ang computer system, ang CPU or the Central Processing Unit. So makita nato that inside the Central Processing Unit, its operation is divided into two, namely the ALU and the CU. Okay? So unsa may gibuhat sa ALU, it performs arithmetic operation, the typical addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulo, so on and so forth. Sa logic operation, it involves comparison. Okay? Greater than, less than, true or false. Okay? So that is where the actual execution of the instruction takes place. Kay kasagaran ato ang i-forward nga instruction padung sa CPU are performing this operation. Okay? So later makita ra na ninyo i-cut on na nato programming. Okay? So next, we have there the control unit. Okay? So in the control unit, This is responsible for managing all coordinates or coordinates all the components of the computer system. So siya may control, let's say padong sa imong hard drive, padong sa memory, padong sa monitor. Okay? So mao na ang operation ni control unit. Okay? So essentially it controls how data are passed gikan sa imong ALU padong balik sa RAM. Okay? So going back to the CPU, okay? When talking about CPU, unsa may latest technology karon sa CPU, guys? Okay, let's hear you out. Okay, mga in technology savvy. Okay, so when you're a computer engineer, dapat updated mo guys sa technology around computers. Okay, because you know, in our profession, okay, paspas kaayo ang technology and we need to always be updated. Okay? So naanay, okay, mga Ryzen, Intel. Okay? So Threadripper is a feature sa Ryzen. Okay, so kana napay M1. So ang M1, kinsay manufacturer aning M1? For those who don't know, kindly
Apple.
share.
Apple.
Okay, so mo na ang latest processor nga gibuhat ni Apple as a replacement for kinsa?
Intel.
Intel. Okay. So, if mangutan ko guys, before Apple use the Intel processor, okay? Unsay gigamit ni Apple? Okay, so nagamit sila Motorola. Okay? So the last siguro nga unit ni Apple nga naggamit og Motorola was kato ilahang Power PC. Okay? So unsa man tong Power PC? The Power PC is that computer that looks like an expensive cheese grater. Okay? Nga purely aluminum. Okay? So nganong nibiya man si Apple, okay? Sa katong ilahang Motorola nga chip, okay? Katong gitawag nila nga Power PC. So simply because Motorola wasn't able to solve the issue with heating. Okay? So that's why Apple came up with that design nga murag giant cheese grater because it was actually designed to prevent the PC from overheating. Okay, so we know that when you say aluminum, it's also one of those good conductor of heat. Okay, so the entire chassis of that unit is acting like a giant heat sink. Okay, so after that line, ni move si Intel, move si Apple to Intel. Okay, na-replace na si na-replace na si Motorola. Yeah, recently, okay, again, Apple had a move na pod to divert away from Intel because Intel was beaten by AMD. Okay, so AMD were able to design a chip which is much more smaller, more faster, okay, and cost lesser. Okay? So mo nang a lot of people are now migrating pod to AMD with this Ryzen lineup nila. Okay? So ang Ryzen murag ang latest kwan pa ba? 5000 series pa ba?
Yes, sir.
5,000 pa no. And then Intel unsa na nga generation kanilang
11.
i-series. Okay? So naa sa 11. So I think upcoming pa si 12. And they were saying that they will beat AMD on that period i-release sa ilahang 12 gen. But I think i-release sa 12 gen mo release na po nag 6,000 series si AMD. So ratol-ratol na si Intel karon. Okay? So dako kay difference in terms of tawag anay price. Okay? So at least kana guys, always be updated of what's new in our field, especially when it comes to computer processor. Okay? So kung maghisgot tag cellphone, okay, unsa may mga leading mga brands sa processor ang ato ang nahibaw-an. Okay? So nainiingon diri Kirin, okay, Exynos, Snapdragon. Okay? So Kirin is from asa man ning Kirin? Okay, Huawei. So si Exynos,
MediaTek.
MediaTek ba si Exynos? Di ba to siya Samsung?
Samsung.
Correct, Samsung to siya. Okay, so natay Snapdragon and we also have one from MediaTek kanang MK series nila. Okay? So usually ang mga tao would prefer Snapdragon no kay mas daghang feature ang ilahang chip, but again, nindot rapot biya ang MediaTek na series. Okay? So ang ubang phones like Xiaomi naaman sila yung mga MediaTek nga processor. So usually MediaTek mao ni ang gamiton sa mga China phone nga mga processor. Okay, so kana so to A15 Bionic. Okay, so it came from Apple, no? Okay, so karon they are moving into M1. Okay, unsa ganito yung reason guys nganong naghimo sila ilahang processor kaning M1 in particular? What was the reason for that move? Are you aware of that? Nganong M1 naghimo sila M1 na chip? What was the primary reason? Uy, nainisulti. Predator. Is Predator a processor? Okay, so I think Predator is not a not a brand, but rather a label, a lineup given to the gaming lineup of asa ang Predator. Sa unsa ng lineup ang Predator? Okay, kay moingon kag Asus. Okay, so there you have Acer. So sa Asus unsa may ilahang gaming lineup? Okay. Oh, lo, why mga gamer diri autora? Gamer si Rob. Okay? Sa Lenovo, katula. Okay, so naadyo tay mga gamers day dire. Okay? So mo na sila mga lineup nila for gaming nga laptops. Okay? So dara unsa ni? According to Mr. Kabag, Apple created M1 driven by business perspective, I guess. Okay? What unsa man nga perspective? Okay? So ingon ni kanonigo pod, M1 is so much faster and more efficient than prior Intel chips. Okay? Is it? It saves revenue kay sariling atin manot ang kilikin ang sariling atin. Okay, now one of the main reason why they move with M1 series is because unsa na ikuan kinsa may na mga iPhone diri. Okay? Kinsay na iPhone. Okay? Unsay processor sa iPhone gigamit? Okay, so unsay kasagaran gigamit sa iPhone processor. Okay, so katong mga A series nila, di ba? Okay, so for their desktop lineup, nasa yung mga Intel. Okay, now what Apple is now marketing is the is the unison of the desktop and the mobile application. Okay, so they want to create an environment wherein any applications developed on a PC and for the mobile is usa na lang. So instead of using kaning gitawag nato nga another program for the A processors nila which is based on ARM, And from that of Intel, which is based on x86 technology, they have created their own processor for both their desktop and mobile lineup. Para kung unsay gi-develop nga application for the desktop side will easily comply with the requirements for the mobile. Okay? Sa karon man gud, di ba guys, if you want to install an application nga mobile app padung sa PC, mag-install ka og emulator. Okay? So dili siya directly compatible. So kung ipaagi pa nimo og emulator, unsay mahitabo sa application, mohinay ang iyang performance kay emulated raman. And wait sa Okay, so going back. Okay, so mo na siya guys, ang reason ni Apple. Okay, so according to Mr. Kabag, Apple, they're creating Apple ecosystem. Okay, so we know Apple biya, they are into exclusivity. Okay, so naas lay ilahang world. Okay, have you noticed when you talk about bisag mga connectors? Okay, so this laganhan mo adapt sa industry standard na USB, himo sila gilaha firewire, okay, or lightning. Okay, so mo na guys, si Apple palaki jud pa para ingnon nindot. Okay, so exclusive lang para sa ilaha. Okay, which is of course medyo bati, di ba? So let's say in the class, ikaw ray na Apple phone niya, you forgot to bring your charger, paksit asa ka maka-charge. Okay, so anyway, muna guys, okay, talking about the CPU technology. So every now and then, again, try to browse the internet for technology change. Okay, so just like for instance, dire, okay, when you are talking about memory, diba? The primary storage. Okay, unsa may latest RAM technology gigamit? Okay. Hello? You still there, guys? Okay. So, DDR. Nano ba DDR5? Okay. Na-release na ba ang DDR5? Okay. So, wala pa ko kakuha na ng DDR5 na na-release na din siya in the market. Okay. So, I think upcoming pa na siya nga technology. Okay. So, latest na to, ipanggamit karon is DDR4. But again, that technology DDR5 is scheduled, I guess, for this year man siguro na siya i-release. Okay. That again, if nanay laptop mo support ana. Okay. So, sa una, ang mga RAM na to, unsa pa man to, yung mga SD-RAM pa ang gamit. Okay? So, perte pa tong hinaya sa ato ang mga RAM. Okay? So, again, technology progresses, nagsigi o improve. Okay? So, nagkapaspas ang ato ang mga memory. So, mga speed aning memory karon could reach up to mga pila mo na siya, mga more than 3,000. Okay? So, sa karon kasagarang speed naaraman sa kwan, di ba? Mo average og na may 3,000 gani ang speed. Okay? So, mauna siya guys. Okay, so what about sa DDR5? Bisan pa dahil maabot ni siya og 4,000. Okay? Kay in terms sa RAM karon, okay, kabantay mo sa uban nga laptops, ang RAM is embedded na sa mga laptop. Okay? So aside from a marketing strategy nga kung maguba ang RAM, which is moray usa sa mga dali maguba, is palit kag bagong computer, okay? One of the reason why the engineers opted to make the RAM embedded with the board is to reduce latency, okay? Para mas paspas ang communication sa CPU with the memory. Kay sa una man good, di ba, ang ato ang RAM is slot type. Okay? Module siya nga pwede nimong mailis-ilisan. Which is of course nindot pod for some kay you could always increase the size of your RAM kung na kay budget. Okay? So mo ni nakanindot kung removable ang RAM. But of course, medyo masacrifice pod ang speed. Okay? So mo nang sa mga portable laptops karon ang mga RAM embedded na sa motherboard. Okay? So aside from the reason that it would reduce the size of the laptop and the cost of production, mas faster pa jud ang iyahang speed. Okay? So mao na siya guys. Okay, so what else? Padayon ta. Okay, so we have already tackled the memory, we have already tackled the CPU. Okay? So, unsa man to, medyo naboringan mo sa discussion nato karon? It's more on technology, manggod. Okay? Or did it give you the motivation to read more technical articles? Okay? So, unsa may tanaw nyo guys, na motivate mo mubasa og more technical articles or did it bored you? Okay? Storya pod mo dire ay. So I think na bored ang uban kay wa na mo respond. Okay? Giduka sila na minaw. Okay? Duharay na motivate luuyan ako ani oy. Okay? Sige, so padayon ta. Now let's move on to the input device. Okay? So sa input device, what do we have here? Okay? So input device will refer to any data the computer collects from people and other devices is called input. Okay, so obviously, okay, the hard phone that collects the data is called an input device. And one common input device that we have is the keyboard. Okay, so karong panahon na murag di na gani kay uso ang keyboard kay kumugamit og cellphone ang touchscreen. Okay. So, mga old technology, you have your point and draw device such as your mouse, trackball, graphic pen. Okay? So, natay mga data scanning device, kanang gitawag nato nga scanner. Okay? OCR, barcode reader, MICR. Okay? So, unsay meaning sa OCR, guys? Okay, na to. Unsay meaning sa OCR? Okay. So kanang MICR, unsay meaning ng MICR? Okay. So CR gyapon. Okay, so kana magnetic ink character recognition, okay? So napud tay mga digitizers, okay? So when you talk about digitizers, in a way referring ra pud na siya pare-parehag technology sa kanang gitawag nato nga mga touchscreen. Okay? So kanang touchscreen nimo is a combination of the display and a digitizer. Okay? So napud tay mga electronic cards and of course mga speech recognition system like from that of a microphone. So microphone ra may needed nato. Unsa pa guys? Okay? Unsa pa gamit kaayo? Ha? Nawala akong screen share? Oh, sorry. Nawala ako ang screen share. Okay. Nawala di akong screen share. Okay, so here it is. Di ganina ra ni nawala ang ako ang screen share. Okay. Panahon pa sa kwan. Unsa pa man to? So ganina pag CPU wala na. Kitara. Okay. So, money guys for the input device. So, what other input device could you name aside from those listed? Biyaan na tag maka-identify pa bag other input device. Unsa pa? Okay, Sharu, di ka identify kanang gamit kay ninyo karon.
Camera, sir.
Camera, sir. Webcam.
Cameras, okay, webcams, okay, microphones, unsa pa kaha?
Image
Okay.
scanner, sir.
Image scanner na naman. Scanner.
Headset, sir.
Printer.
Headset. Pero when you say headset, a headset is both an output and an input device. Di ba? Ang headset, basically, kung input device, ang microphone. Unsa pa ganito? Unsa pa ingon sa uban?
Printer daw.
Printer. Is printer an input device?
Digital camcorder, sir.
Okay, so digital camcorder, pwede.
Fingerprint, sir.
Unsa to? Unsa to?
Fingerprint daw.
Okay, so joystick, MIDI, keyboard. Okay, unsa pa to? Kanang gigamit sa kuan. Magduwa mo games.
DVD, sir.
DVD player. Okay? So napay touchpad, 'di ba? O fingerprint, daghan kayong mga input device. Okay? So dapat kabaw mo distinguish unsay input ug unsay output. O kani napay Microsoft Kinect sensor. Okay? So unsa gani ng Microsoft Kinect sensor? Unsa may nakalahian na niya compared sa webcam? Motion tracking. Okay, so a webcam can also do that, motion tracking. Unsa may feature na sa Microsoft Kinect sensor nga wala sa webcam?
IR.
Ang IR. And why do they use the IR? Okay, unsa may di mabuhat sa webcam nga mabuhat ni Kinect? Okay, so it is the sense of depth. Okay, kay with an ordinary webcam, okay, the computer can only receive, okay, mga two-dimensional data. Okay, but with the help of the Microsoft Kinect sensor, it is able to detect the depth. So essentially, kung unsa kalaya ang user, iyahang ma-detect. Okay? So mo nang dali kay iyahang optical recognition with the movements. Kay makita man niya ang kamot, ang tiil as the user moves along. Okay? So in short, mura siya 3D camera. Okay? But of course, dili jud purely 3D. Okay? So mo na siya guys ang sa Kinect. Na siya depth sensing. Okay? So those are the input device. So moving forward, okay, output device. Okay, unsa man ning output device? So it refers to any data the computer produces for people or for other devices is called an output. The hardware component that formats and presents the data is called output device. And some common output device are the monitor, printers, plotters, screen image projector, and what else?
Speaker, sir.
Speaker. Okay, unsa pa? So ano yung mahuna-huna ang printer? Or printer output device. So sa printer, it could be inkjet printer, it could be 3D printer, di ba? It could be taste or smell printer. Okay. So dungog pa mo ana nga technology gi-develop sa una, guys. Okay. So ingon nila it will be the next big thing kay let's say for example ang kaninga store na ipaligya nga food. So before you can buy online, the user can have a taste of the food, or when you buy a perfume, the user will be given a chance to have what it's like to smell that object. Okay? So, kana, imagine mo, before ka mo palit og food, pili ka mo, tilaw, i-print lang nimo. Or kung ganahan ka na simhuton nga perfume, i-print lang nimo. Okay? So, kuyaw kay no. Pero wa mo jud to ma-realize unsaon na lang masayop kag print tai. It taste nimo. Yo. Okay? So anyway, mao na siya ang technology. So far, what it's being done, mga 3D printer pa successful. Okay? So unsa pa man? Keyboard. Is keyboard an output device? Okay, sige, mangutana ta. Mr. Capisnon, nganong nakaingon man ka keyboard is an output device? So it really would depend on how you explain it. So why did you say that keyboard is an output device? Hello, Mr. Capisnon? Could you elaborate more on your answer? Why were you able to say that the keyboard is an output device? Hello? Yes, Mr.
Sir.
Capisnon? Oh, why did you say that keyboard is an output device?
Mawinig ko sila sa search, sir.
Na, mao ka. Google ready ay. Okay, could someone elaborate, guys? Why keyboard is considered as an output device? So, mangutan ako, on the first place, why do we use keyboard? Do we receive anything from the keyboard? Kay mo man ang giisulti dira. Any data the computer produces for the people for other devices is called output. The hardware component that formats and present that data is called output device. So what does the keyboard present to us as user?
Mga text, sir, mga text.
Mga text. So ang keyboard mo generate og text. Pag sure mo eh. Kamuha, di pa mo kabaw mo distinguish between what an output device is and what an input device is. Where do we use keyboard primarily for?
Input, sir.
Diba for input? So a keyboard device is used as an input device to input characters. It is not used to output characters. It is the monitor that does. That does that. Okay, napalit na hinuon. Oh. Okay? Pero depending on the answer, if you can explain why a keyboard is considered as an output device, I may consider. But if mo na ang reason, kay mo input siya, dili mao siguro ang reason. Okay? Tara. So from Mr. Kabag, the keyboard could only be tagged as an output device if the keyboard emits light, aka RGB. Sakto, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so ana na siya ma-considered nato. Okay? Kanang RGB. Okay, gamit man sad na siya for aesthetics. Okay, so there are some keyboards that actually have this light effect that corresponds with the game itself. Okay? Nga mura pag hadlukon pud ka ba, labi mo play kag horror nga mga games, mag-usap-usap pud ang color niya, but most of kani mga keyboards mapalit nato mga baratuhon kay mura ra man jud siya LED nga gasiga-siga lang. Okay? So di makontrol. Okay? So anyway, mao na siya. Okay? Ang reason if you consider a keyboard as an output device. Okay? So napa kinsa pa man ni? Speech generating device. So that's I think sa speaker, di ba? So it converts that data into sound. Okay? Unsa pa man? Kani from Sofia and Sumalinog. They said GPS. is an output device. Could you explain to us, guys, why you consider GPS an output device? Okay, so Miss Albarazin and Mr. Sumalino joined forces. Can you tell us why you consider GPS as an output device? What is the GPS primarily used for, guys? Or what does GPS
Location,
stand
sir.
for?
Collect
Navigation
time,
system, sir.
location, or speed, sir.
Okay. So, siya ba'y muhatag sa tao, ana? Or siya'y muhatag sa computer? Which is which? Sige, mo na'y tanaw ninyo when you say input or output device. Okay? So, kung ang tigdawat si computer, that's an input device. Kung ang tigdawat si tao, then that's an output device. Okay? So, they said, muhatag siya time, location, di ba? Latitude, longitude. Okay? Pero kinsa may hatagan ana ni GPS? Ang tao ba or ang computer?
Ang tao.
Okay? Ang tao? When you
Computer,
have a,
sir.
when you
The
have a,
receiver is the computer, sir.
oh, di ba? The receiver is the
Tanawon ra sa tao,
computer.
sir.
Okay? Unsa may itsuraan ng GPS? Kung tanaw ninyo, na ba siya'y monitor nga makita nimo ang place, time? Wala, di ba? So GPS is actually an input device. Kay the GPS will provide information to the computer. And the computer will process that information para makita sa tao in a human readable format. Okay? So take note, GPS is an input device. It is not an output device. Okay? So take note, na dire. The hardware component that formats and presents the data is called output device. Okay? So just like when you say sound, okay? So the computer generate the data and the format, and basically you have the sound card that modifies that data into something that the speaker can represent into a sound. Okay? So naay mga gitawag nato nga digital to analog conversion nga nahitabo. So basically, the computer can only understand digital information. However, when you talk about the real world is analog. So those information nga digital must be converted into analog para magamit sa tao. So just like for example, sa monitor nimo, ang output nato, though screen na siya, basically is an analog format because it shows different intensities of light. Analog signal. When you talk about the sound, ang madunggan nimo dili man on off, but rather an analog signal, okay, which is continuous. Okay, so mao na siya, guys. Okay, so any other output device? Okay, kinsa may mga gamer dire? Okay, walay mga gamer. Okay, so kanang joystick, can we consider joystick as an input or output device? Input siya. Okay? Pero kung mo vibrate ang ato ang joystick, okay? What do we call that? Okay? Kanang mo vibrate. Let's say your
Output,
cellphone.
sir.
Okay, that's an output, di ba? Unsa man ng vibration nga gi-generate sa joystick. Okay? So mo na yung mga gitawag nato, guys, nga haptic device. Okay? So it generates a motion corresponding to what the computer is processing to give you not just the sound, the sight, but also the feeling. Okay? So pang virtual reality yung ana ba. So, di ba, when you say usually reality is more on sight and sound. But with the so-called haptic feedback, it also gives you the sensation. Okay? So, ambot lang nakasuway ba mo ano kanang mga 3D nga mga cinema. Okay? So, dili lang 3D but basically 4D. Okay? Dira sa SM kasi nakasuway dira sa SM. Kanang 4D theater nila nga good for 4 raman ata ng tao. So aside sa you can see the video on 3D, you also experience okay the sensation of being on an actual roller coaster ride without being on one. Okay? So ang chair mo ay move emulating the sensation of you going up and down. Okay? So muna na mga kwan guys, mga third generation ng mga simulators nindot ang tagnata na sa balay no. Okay? So even kaning sa kwan no, kaning sa mga unsa ni siya kaning sa mga entertainment centers, di ba kanang mga Bibo, unsa ganina sa kwan sa Ayala, time zone, okay? Di ba ang ilahang mga arcade games dira like kanang pang racing na ay gitawag nato nga haptic feedback sa iyahang manubela. If i-drive nimo, let's say for example, murag mo go against ka, ma-feel nimo nga manubela nimo mo gahi pod. Okay? Na meaning, uy, di ka pwede ka farther turn left or right. Okay? So that is what you call guys as a haptic feedback. Okay? So try to search on that. Okay? So just like your cell phone, actually it's not something new to you. Kana ding mo press ka og key sa cellphone, di ba? Kabantay mo na nga every time mo press kag key na ay sensation nga mo vibrate indicating that you actually press that key to telling you that the computer actually receives that information that you press the key. Okay, so that's one example of a haptic feedback. Okay. Now, let's move on to the different computing environments. So in a way, na natay idea what is inside the computer system. Okay? So naatay sa to, primary, secondary storage, natay processor, natay mga input ug output device. Now let us look at this so-called different computing environments. Okay? So in the early days of computer, there were only one environment kaning gitawag nato nga mainframe computer. Okay? So unsa man ang mainframe computer? Ang mga computer manggod kaniadto guys, tungod kay mahal kaayo ang processor, they only have one processor and this is located on a so-called central computing department. Naa dira gibutang ang mainframe computer which does all the processing. Okay? Nya ang sa mga computer sa mga office, they are called dumb terminals. They don't really actually have their own processor. They only rely on the mainframe. So mo connect na siya. Okay? Sa taas kayo nga wire padung sa mainframe computer. Okay? So here with the advent of the mini computers and personal computer, the environment changed with computers on virtually every desktop. Okay, so gitawag natong personal computer na siya because we have our own processor na inside our computers. Dili pareha sa una nga dumb terminals. Okay? So computers before cannot stand by itself. It needs the mainframe to do its processing. Okay? So here in this section, we'll try to describe several different environments. Okay, so these are just some of those few. So pinaka-common sa ato is the personal computing environment. Okay, thus we call it as PCs. Okay, so this is just a single computer. Okay, and all system processes are available in this computer. Okay, so the different devices that constitute a personal computing environment are the following. So laptops, mobile phones, Okay? So together with your scanners, printers, and other computer system. Okay? So mo na to ang personal computing environment. Okay? So something nga common para ninyo tanan. Another one is this so-called time sharing computing environment. Okay? So basic setup. Okay? So it allows multiple users to share the system simultaneously. So let's say for example, there is like a server. Okay? So in a way murag pare-parehag mainframe, but essentially a time sharing computing environment has PCs on every end. Okay? So as stated there, it is used to share system resources like for example, common printer, common storage. Okay? So nganong kailangan man na central storage? There are cases man good guys when people are working on a single file or a single project, they need to put that file on a central repository where everyone can access it. Okay, so that is where network, okay, or that's why networks were created for that function. Okay, so kung ang trabaho nimo involves only you, then you won't need this setup. You are good with PC. Okay? So again, this one nindot ni siya gamiton for company setup. Okay? So we also have here the client server computing. So as stated there, medyo pari-pariha ra siya o gitawag nato time sharing environment, but of course main difference is that ang imuhang client which usually requests a resource, okay, there is a server that provides all these resources. Okay, so typically the server will serve multiple clients at the same time while the client is in contact only with one server. Okay, so both the client and the server usually communicate via the computer network, but sometimes they may reside on the same system. How does they differ? Okay, with time sharing, okay, each client will only be allocated one processor at a time. Okay? So, kani nga setup, common kay ni siya sa mga karaan nga system. Okay? So, medyo hinay. Pero again, karong mga panahon na nagkapaspas ng computer, everything can be done simultaneously. Okay? So, here we have the cloud computing, okay, which is also becoming a fad nowadays. Okay? So, in cloud computing, okay, almost every process is taken away from the PC side and uploaded on the cloud. So when you say cloud, it refers to the unsa man na siya guys when you say cloud. Wait lang. Wait sa. Okay. Okay, sorry. So unsa to when you talk about cloud, what does it refers to guys? So cloud is just technical jargon referring to the internet. Okay. So karong mga panahon na, okay, kung makabantay mo, okay, when you talk about word processing, what do you need? What application do you need? Okay? For word processing, okay, you need MS Word. Unsa pa? So, karong panahon na, di ba? Na kay alternative. You need not install MS Word on your computer for you to be able to do word processing. You can have Google Docs. And where is Google Docs installed? Okay, so you don't have Google Docs on your computer, it is provided by the internet. Okay, so natay mga ana guys. Okay, so kanang mga gitawag na ito nga platform as a service, application as a service, infrastructure as a service, which is becoming more and more rampant today. Okay, so again, example, Google Docs, di ba? Mga spreadsheets, you can do it online na. Even Office 360 has been brought online and you can use it for free actually guys. So again, these are some applications that you could use with your CTU account. Okay, so pwede na ninyo i-register guys ang inyong account when you log on to Microsoft kanang sa Office 360 para magamit ninyo. Okay, so again, one of our advantage of having the CTU account is having the education fundamental nga subscription with Google. That's why it is possible for us to create a classroom solely for CTU accounts lang. Okay? So let's say for example, na-create aning Meet nato. Okay? So usually ang makasudra jud dire is those with CTU account. Kung walay CTU account, personal account gamit, it will prompt to me and I have the option not to accept him or her. Kay nga naman, labi na ako kaila. Okay? They may be a poser. Okay? So, di taganahan guys, nga naalay kalit musud sa ato ang klase. Niya mo kalit lang og share og screen niya, nag-show siya. Unsaon na lang, matroma niya mo, makakita mo na nag-show dira. Okay? So, nahitabo biya na siya in one of the elementary session before nga nainisod gi-accept ra pud sa teacher. Okay, thinking nga student niya og nagpakita. Okay, so na trauma in town ang mga bata. Ang pangutana, kung makakita mo ging ana, matrauma pa ba mo? Bisag mamakpak pa mo ha. Okay, so anyway, let's just hope niya likay na lang sa inganang mga incident. Okay, so platform. Okay, so unsa man sa ning mga platform. So just like for example, having this Google Classroom. Okay, so this is our platform for education. Okay, so infrastructure. Unsa man sa ning infrastructure? What is that kind of service? Nganong kailangan og infrastructure, sir? And we can see it from there. Nay compute, nay block storage, nay network. Okay. Now, there are cases, manggod guys, wherein, let's say, for example, if you want to create your own web service, okay, but your computer is low-end, okay, dili ka support o daghan kaayong subscriber or visit sa imong site using your computer. Kay nga naman, very low ang specs, gamay ra kayo gram. So when you talk about kanang servers, okay, for certain websites, let's say doing unsay mga favorite sites ninyo guys kanang watching movies. Share ko na mo. Oh, Netflix, GoGo Anime, Soap Today, sustikana eh. Why pang mora ni pang anime, GoGo Anime? Why lain? Okay, so for example, kana sila, those servers are handling millions of subscriber a day. So imagine if you are just simply using your personal computer, pilaray storage sa imong personal computer, pilaray RAM. Okay, di na niya makaya. So ang tendensya na sa client side, i-browse nila sa imong website, uy, kamang man kayo iyang website, di na ako mobalik diri oy, wa man koy matanaw. So, mo nang buhat sa uban, since dili isla ka-afford og actual hardware, they go to the internet, okay, and subscribe to these services. Wherein in the internet, pwede sila kapalit og ingani ang computing power. Okay? It can accommodate up to, let's say, 1 million user subscribers. Pwede ko kapalit og storage adto na pod. Okay? So kana siya mga services is provided by, let's say for example, Amazon. Okay? mo provide sila na si Google mo provide pud ana, and there are many other more services that gives out this kind of services. Okay, so na mga again mga startup, okay, nga dili pa ka afford og ing ani nga klase nga hardware, so they can opt to first utilize those type of service, okay, to support their product. Okay, kay what if ang product day nila dili mo click niya, dako kay sag nagasto sa infrastructure, dako kay sag bawion, while this one, okay, on demand, kung tan-aw nila, uy, nikusog ang subscriber nako, nihinay na ang ako ang server. Okay, I will subscribe um to a bigger computing power, more storage. Okay, so ka-upgrade ra sila anytime. Okay, without the actual hardware. So kana pud guys, mao na sad nay trend karon, the cloud computing. Okay, so far sa gawas sa nasod, kusog na kay ni siya. However, diri sa Pinas, murag because of our internet connection, wala kay ni siya musikat sa una. So good thing, okay, pag abot aning mga pag di man jud malimod no, pag abot ni Duterte ang ato ang internet connection is way better compared sa mga previous administration. Kay nga naman gipugos man gud sa ato ang presidente nga ang mga telco to be more competitive. Okay? Nag-set sila og guidelines nga dapat ang service dili mo ubos ani nga speed. Otherwise, tangtangan sila license. So, kaubo ang mga telco. Kabantay mo sa inyong ron guys, internet compared before. For a price of let's say 1,200. Okay? Sa una, it was just around 500 KB ang speed. Pero with 1,200, karong panahon na, your speed can go as high as 5 to 10 MB na. Okay? So, dako jud kayog difference. Okay? So, with the third telco, okay, murag nagpanic pud siguro si Globe o si PLDT, nakaahat pud sila og improve kay nga naman mamiya man ang ilang subscriber, namalhin naman sa dito. Okay, naapay converge. So which is much better kay nga naman the more competition, the prices go low. Okay? Of course, unless ang problema ani nato sa drone is kung magkasinabot gani ning upat ka telco to have a fixed price, pildi gihapon tang consumer. Pero if they keep on competing based on the price, malipay tang mga consumer kay expected magkaubos-ubos jud ang price. Naireklamo si Sumalinog. Ang speed boost sa PLDT walay epekto. Bitaw sad sometimes, but sa mo sa city area siguro ma-feel nimo ang speed boost. Okay? So kung nag-try mo anang speed test guys, try using speed test. Makaingon mo ang speed test by Ookla is bias kang PLDT compared anang speed test done in Google. Okay? Sa speed test based on Ookla, dagko kay score. Pero you really can't sometimes feel kung tinuot ba. Okay? Kaya when you try to stream or download, mura mas kusog pa man tong DSL sa una compared sa fiber. Okay? So anyway, wata ka ba bisag nasa slide tweak dito nga every time makadetect siya og speed test nga inquiry, automatic i-redirect para mo paspas ang ato ang connection. Pero pang speed test rapod nga website for other website, labi nag-streaming pahinayon. Okay, so again, ilahan na ng marketing strategy. Okay, ang ato aryut town, igo aryut tadawat. Okay? So daghan king scam no, maabot og 100 Mbps pero ang download speed nganong hinay man kaayo. Ang 1 gig maabtan man gihapon 30 minutes kay kumingon kag 100 Mbps ang imuhang na tawaganay na detect og download. Pila ra man na siya. So dapat 10 seconds ra pud ang imuhang 1 gig na download. Okay? So anyway, again, that has to do something with your location. Kay one thing with internet connection manggod guys, if sa usa ka box, okay, makabantay mo igtan-aw ninyo sa gawas sa inyong balay, probably makabantay mo sa mga poste, there are those black box dira from either Converge baron or Dito or PLDT, okay? Mao man ni siya mo manage kung pila mo kapuok magbahin sa speed. So if let's say for example sa inyong area daghan kay mong subscriber puro PLDT, makuan man na dito grabe ang traffic ba sa inyong pinaka-router nga site. Mo nang ang mahitabo muhinay sad sa imuhang site because ang internet connectivity ninyo di man dedicated ang connection. Mahagbong man na siya nga shared mo sa kana nga lugar. So the more user anang lugar, mas daghan mo magbahin, mas muhinay ang speed. Unless of course you paid for a subscription wherein you have a so-called dedicated speed or kanang gitawag nato nga 100% reliability nga di jud moupos ang imuhang speed based on that, which is of course mas mahal compared sa ordinary subscription. Okay, so anyway, that's it for cloud computing. Okay, that's how technology evolves nowadays. Okay, so karong mga panahon na I think it's been used naman sa siguro kay when every time you use Google Docs, spreadsheets, form, we are using this service as an application. Okay, so good thing it is given for us for free. Okay, so makagamit mag spreadsheet, but of course there's totally not for free, di ba? So even though mingon kag nakay personal email sa Google which is nadawat nimo for free, but are you sure it's for free? You're actually paying Google with your information. Okay? So just like Facebook, you think it's free? No. Your information is your payment for using their service. Okay? So bantay-bantay mo ng information ninyo nga ibutang ninyo sa Facebook. Okay. So any questions before we proceed? Wala ra? Okay, sige, padayon ta. So, prior to that, we have now discussed about the hardware part of the computer. Okay? So, let's also talk about the software part. Okay? So, when you talk about software, it is what makes your hardware usable. Bisag unsa pa na kanindot ang imuhang rig dira nya kagamit gihapon ka og Windows 3.1, di gihapon nimo ma-appreciate ang imuhang hardware. Okay? So you might have the best processor, Ryzen 10, ingnaon tag ang latest model, 10th gen, okay? 64 gig RAM, okay? 2 terabyte SSD. Pero ang suot sa imong computer is specifically Conra WPS lang. Di ka malingaw. Okay? So some hardware may perform different jobs using different software. Obviously, that is true. Okay? So you might have the same hardware, pero ang usa gi-installan og Linux, ang usa gi-installan og Windows. Okay? Same hardware but different ang inyong user experience. Okay? So everything has to do with the software nowadays. Okay? Now, let's talk about softwares. Okay? What are the types of software? Okay? Padung naman ta na nga track, guys. So when you talk about software, okay, we talk about programs that control and manage the basic operation of a computer. Okay? So when you talk about system software, mao na siya. Control and manage basic operation of the computer. So this includes operating systems, utility programs, and software development tools. Okay? So unsa may example sa operating system nga ato ang hibaw-an? Okay, so you have Windows, Linux, Mac OS. Okay? So sa Linux guys, unsay mga variation sa Linux ang inyong nagamit? Okay, o dara, nangkawas na. Ubuntu. Okay, what other variation of Linux pa? Daghan kini sa Linux. Okay? Lime, PiOS. Okay? So na namang sad kani Android OS for PC. Okay? So daghan ka variation si Linux. Oy, nay nakasuway og Kali. Okay? Who tried using Kali here? Kali Linux. Okay, so when you talk about, let's say, ingon nila for Windows replacement, a lot of people would opt for Ubuntu nga variant. Okay? However, if you use Kali, okay, sa Kaila. Oh, sa Kaila din nakagamit. Okay? So you use Kali specifically for security. Okay? So ingon nila mga hacking. Okay, if you want to learn hacking, try installing kana Kali Linux. Okay? So Unix is the proprietary version of Linux. Linux is the free version. Okay? So Unix is basically mo na gibasihan ni Linux, and where Mac OS is also basing their core function. Okay? So, mana siya. Operating system. How about utility programs, guys? Unsay mga examples sa utility programs? As indicated there, it performs a specialized task that enhances the computer's operation or safeguards the data. Okay, unsa may? What utility programs can you think of? Come on, everyone. Sige. Sample, dara. Windows Defender, antivirus software. So Windows Defender is an antivirus software. Unsa pa? What other antivirus software are you aware of? Avast, okay. Bitdefender, ESET, okay. So luoyan no, na jud madungog ang ubang antivirus software like Norton and McAfee. So Norton and McAfee mo ni sila yung mga sikat kayong mga antivirus software before. Okay? Bitdefender, where do we use Bitdefender for? Okay? So use siya si Bitdefender to lock your data against kanang gitawag nato nga intrusions like ransomware. Okay? O, tara. Kaspersky. Tara. So, sakto. Kanuni ko. Gamit na nato for ransomware. So, something that you should be very well aware of, guys, kanang mga ransomware. So, when you try to install application on your computer, as much as possible, make sure it is from a reputable source. Okay? Kay kuyaw kaayo mag-install kag software, dali ra kaayo i-inject sa mga hacker ang ilahang malware sa mga legit na software. Okay, that can be done easily when you have kana Kali Linux. There's a tutorial there of how you can do that. Mo nang karong panahon na kuyawan na kay ko mag-install og application gikan sa kanang mga pirate sites or even kanang sa mga torrent sites, kay it is a good grounds for hacker to put their trap for you. Yeah. Unsa ba yung mabuhat aning ransomware? Once you are infected, it will lock your file, and unless mubayad ka nila, you can't retrieve those files. So, probably for us user, di man kay nga nakamahal ang ato ang mga file, pwede ra na imuha na reformats computer. But for, let's say, companies, okay, like for example banks, kuyaw kay nasla may go ransomware. Okay, kay they hold a lot of personal data. Okay, so mga customer data unsa na lag mawala. Okay, so mo na to ang utility programs. Okay, so what else? We have their software development tools, are programs that are used to create, modify, and test software. Okay, unsa may example sa mga software development tools ang inyong naagian na? Okay? So kato-ato ang from ACT. Okay? Visual Studio. Okay, that's one. So that's for free. Okay? So you can download guys Visual Studio Community Edition. Okay, which is comparable to the Windows Studio Professional version in Microsoft. Okay? So actually mas daghang features si Professional, but again, those things that you need to use are in the Community Edition. Okay? So it's free, but of course there's some catch to it. Okay? So I think every month you need to connect to the internet to renew your license para magamit nimo si Visual Studio. Okay? Unsa pa? Okay? What other software development tools ang medyo aware mo of? Okay, na nagamit-gamit. Okay, katong gipa-download na ako ninyo. Okay, dara, a fast Google will solve your problem. So, kanaw, JetBrains. Okay, you can download it again for free if you have the CTU email. Okay, so, iyang ate, naggamit og NetBeans. Okay, so NetBeans. And GitHub. Okay, so GitHub, I think that's a service, but you may need to use a client. Okay, just like kaning kwan guys ba? Di ba naman tayo Google Drive? So the good thing about you having an educational account for Google Drive is your Google Drive is not limited to 15 gig. Okay, you virtually will have an unlimited amount of storage with the free version. I think pwede mo ka-save dira as many as 100 gig. Okay? Now, to make it easier para dili mo magsigi og sulod anang Google Drive nga site using your browser, download the application for Drive. Okay? So, try to Google that guys. There is an application actually for Drive to allow you to map your Google Drive directly to your Windows Explorer. So that means you can navigate through Google Drive using Windows Explorer. Diba? How cool is that? So it's just like having an external drive but connected to the internet instead of a flash drive. Okay? So there we also have NetBeans. Jenkins? Bago lagi ni. Unsa ning Jenkins? Igot. Karon po kadungog aning Jenkins. What is this used for? Automation. Okay. Pang-develop ba din siya? For software development, karon pa ko ani, murag open source man sad siya, no? Got to look at this. Okay, so other applications, software development tools, nga probably maagian ninyo in the future, kanaw, Visual Studio, JetBrains, NetBeans, probably Eclipse also. But for this class, okay, we'll just use the Dev C++, katong kang embarkado nga ako ang gihatag ninyo. Okay? Okay, so mo na siya guys, ang ato ang mga system software. Okay? So let's move on to another type of software, the application software. Okay? So when you talk about application software, these are programs that people normally spend most of their running time on their computers performing everyday tasks are referred to as the application software. So example, mga word processing, spreadsheet, database presentation, what else? Ang pinaka nindot gamiton with computers. Okay? Ang inyuhang
Games.
games. Daan palagi ko. Okay? So aside from that, mga favorite games ninyo in your mobile phone, so you can play it on your personal computers, unsay need na to install? Okay.
Emulator.
What specific emulator are you using, guys? Bayaw na to kinsa ning mga mobile gamers that are using their PC. So na BlueStack, okay, manay pinakasikat. So you also have Nox, Mimo, Tencent, bago ning Tencent. Unsay feature aning Tencent bay? Okay. Oh, Nyadas, can you share also? Unsa man ni siyang Tencent? Karon po kadungo gani. Pero how is it compared to BlueStack? Kay when you talk about let's say murag gaming centric, murag daghan ni gamit og Nox. Okay. So all of this mga emulators, nam na siya yung mga murag specialty kung asa siya gi-design. Okay? Manang tangtangon ra. Okay, so anyway, mo na siya ang application software. So I think you're familiar now with what an application software are and how it differs from that of what you call as a system software. Okay? So basically, this is our logical system architecture of our hardware and software, and of course, together with the user. So we have here, our first discussion was all about the hardware, okay, the things that you can see in a computer system, and then what controls the hardware, okay, is of course the software. So the software nato is categorized into system software and application software, wherein most of the time that application software could be reliant on the type of system software installed, because not all application software are designed for a specific operating system. Okay? So good thing natay mga gitawag na emulators. Okay? Like for example, if you want to run applications from Apple here in PC, though murag seldom ra jud kay na mahitabo, but it's more of what are the applications or what application ang gamiton nimo sa Apple para maka-run ka og Windows na application. Kay kasagaran man gud when you talk about um, scientific applications, engineering applications, they are designed for Windows na PC and not for Apple. Okay? So Apple is more on luxury and more on arts ang iyang application. Okay? So, murag seldom ra kay ko makakita og mga pang-engineering na application compared sa Windows. Okay? So, of course, on the outermost, you have there the users who will be using the software. So, ang users have direct interaction with your so-called application software. Okay? So, mana siya guys. So far, ang core sa to ang discussion. Okay? So, all about hardware and softwares. Okay? The computer system. Okay? So far, questions before we move on with our topic? Okay? So, ato lang ning i-utilize ang ato ang remaining time since medyo 2 meetings biya ang ato ang wa magamit because of the event last week. Okay? So, supposed to be naon ta tay mga activities buhaton, but medyo wa man takaabot sa to ang target because of the activities performed by the school last week. Okay? So again, questions, clarifications, or violent reactions na? Guys, girls? Don't worry guys, I will be uploading the slides dinere sa ato ang classroom. Okay? Naara ni sa inyong classroom for your reference. Okay? So wala pa lang nako gi-upload daan kay napa koy gipang add ng mga topics. Okay? So what else? Wala na. Wala na questions so far. Thank you na lang. Why mga reaction? Questions, clarifications about the topic? Sige. Very good. So let's proceed. So let's move on to this part na. Okay. So in a way, nanatay overview what the softwares are. Okay, what are the types of softwares? What it does to your hardware. Now let's see, how are computers storing our data? Okay, so as stated there, all data that is stored in a computer is converted to sequences